is a strange feeling that comes with being the only person awake when the rest of the world is sleeping. A pizza shop during the day feels ordinary. People walking in, phones ringing, employees talking, the kitchen full of movement and noise. But after midnight, everything changes. The same place that feels normal in the afternoon starts feeling unfamiliar. The lights stay on, the ovens keep running, and the machines keep making their usual sounds. But when you are standing there alone at 3 a.m., those sounds start feeling different. A refrigerator turning on sounds like someone opening a door. A metal tray falling sounds like footsteps. The kitchen timer going off feels like a warning. Over the past few years, especially with worker shortages forcing many businesses to run with fewer employees, overnight workers have found themselves handling entire stores alone, taking orders, making food, cleaning, watching the parking lot, all while knowing there is nobody nearby if something goes wrong. That is what makes late-night shifts so difficult. It is not just the darkness outside, it is the isolation. Many overnight workers describe a strange feeling of being watched. They sit under bright lights inside the store, looking through glass windows into a completely dark parking lot. The inside is visible, the outside is not. It creates a feeling like being trapped inside a glass box. Anyone could be standing outside in the shadows, and the worker might never notice. After enough nights alone, the mind starts reacting differently. Lack of sleep changes how people process sounds and movement. Small things become bigger. A shadow becomes a person. A noise becomes a threat. And sometimes the things workers fear are not just in their imagination. Sometimes they are real. These are 3 disturbing stories from people who worked the graveyard shift at pizza centers. The first story was remembered as the kitchen shadow. In 2024, a kitchen worker decided to live stream his overnight shift. He was alone, and the hours moved slowly. He started the stream just to talk with people and make the night feel less empty. For a while, everything was normal. He prepared dough, cleaned the counters, checked incoming orders. Nothing unusual happened, until viewers noticed something behind him. In the background of the live stream, near the kitchen entrance, there was a dark shape, a figure, standing still, watching. The worker did not notice at first. People watching the stream began commenting, "Who is behind you? Someone is in the kitchen." The worker laughed at first, thinking someone was joking. But when he turned around, nobody was there. The kitchen was empty. He walked through the entire store, the storage room, the bathrooms, the back area. Nothing. But the feeling stayed. Something had been there. After ending the live stream, he contacted authorities. When police arrived, they searched the building carefully. That was when they discovered something hidden behind the kitchen area, a crawl space. Inside, they found signs that someone had been hiding inside the building and watching employees for weeks. The most disturbing discovery came during the search. Investigators found handprints on high shelves inside the kitchen, not where a normal employee would place their hands. These were on areas that required climbing, places where someone hiding above could watch the workers below. the employee realized something terrifying. For weeks, he had been preparing pizzas, cleaning counters, and walking through that kitchen while someone else was inside the building with him. The second story came from a worker who started receiving strange phone calls. Every night around the same time, the phone rang. He would answer. Nothing. No voice, no order, just silence and breathing. At first, he thought it was a prank, but it happened again and again. The caller never spoke. They only listened. The worker began feeling uncomfortable every time the phone rang, because whoever was calling was not trying to order food. They were calling just to hear him. Eventually, one night, he looked through the front window while still on the phone. Across the empty parking lot, there was someone standing there, completely still, looking toward the store. The worker froze. He looked away for a second. When he looked back, the person was gone. The third story was from a delivery worker who started noticing strange things during his overnight shifts. Small things. A door that was slightly open. A chair moved from where he left it. Objects that were not in the same place. At first, he blamed himself. He thought he was tired. He thought he was forgetting. Until one night, he found something that made him stop. A fresh footprint near the back entrance. Someone had been inside. He checked the cameras. Nothing. He checked the alarms. Nothing. But the footprint was real. After that night, he refused to work the overnight shift alone, because the hardest part about being in a building at 3 a.m. is not always the darkness. It is the thought that keeps coming back. When you are completely alone, are you actually alone? There is something about being awake at 3 a.m. that changes the way you see things. A place that feels completely normal during the day can feel like a different world at night. A pizza shop that is usually full of noise becomes almost silent. The conversations disappear. The customers are gone. The only sounds left are the ovens running, the refrigerators humming, and the occasional buzz from the lights above you. When you work alone during those hours, your mind starts paying attention to things you normally ignore. A sound from the back room, a shadow outside the window, a door moving slightly. It is not just the darkness that bothers overnight workers. It's knowing that if something happens, there might not be anyone close enough to help. Many late-night employees have experienced that strange feeling of isolation, standing inside a bright store while looking out into a completely dark parking lot. You can see everything inside, but outside, the darkness hides everything. And for one pizza center worker, one routine task turned into a night he would never forget. This was known as the back-loading dock encounter. The worker had been doing overnight shifts for months. By then, he knew the routine by heart. Prepare the orders, clean the kitchen, check the equipment, finish the closing tasks. The only thing he always hated was taking out the trash. The dumpster was behind the building near the loading dock. It was away from the main entrance, away from the street lights, a place where the cameras did not have the best view. But every night before leaving, he had to make that walk. One night, around 3:30 in the morning, he grabbed the trash bags and opened the back door. The moment he stepped outside, he noticed something was different. The entire parking area was silent. No cars passing, no wind, no movement. Then he saw someone near the dumpster. A person standing there, completely still. At first, the worker thought maybe it was someone waiting for a delivery. But after watching for a few seconds, he realized something was wrong. The person was not moving. They were not looking around. They were not using a phone. They were just standing there, facing the building. The worker immediately stepped back inside. He locked the door and he watched through the small window. Minutes passed, then an hour, then another. The person never moved. For nearly 2 hours, that figure remained beside the dumpster. The worker did not know what to do. Calling the police felt extreme because the person had not done anything. They were just standing there. But that was what made it terrifying. Why would someone stand outside a closed business in the middle of the night for that long? Then the worker noticed something that made the situation even worse. The person was wearing an apron. Not a random apron, a pizza shop apron. At first, he thought maybe it was another employee, but then he saw the detail that made him realize something was very wrong. The apron had the custom patch used only by workers at that specific location. It was not something customers could buy. It was not something strangers should have. The person outside had something connected to the store, something that meant they knew the place. The worker moved away from the door and called for help. A short time later, the person disappeared. When police arrived, they searched the area around the building. They found no one. But during the investigation, they discovered something disturbing. The store's digital order monitor had been accessed remotely. The system logs showed unusual activity during the same time period. Someone had been viewing information from inside the store. The police believed someone may have been using the system to monitor what was happening inside, watching the worker's movements, knowing when he was near the front, knowing when he would go to the back. The worst part was realizing that the person outside may not have been there randomly. They may have been waiting, they may have been watching, and they may have known exactly when the worker would come outside. After that night, the worker stopped taking overnight shifts alone. There is something about working alone at night that changes how you see a familiar place. During the day, a pizza center feels normal. Customers coming in and out, phones ringing, employees talking. The sound of people around you makes the place feel alive. But after midnight, it becomes completely different. The same store feels bigger. The empty tables feel strange. The parking lot outside feels darker than it should. And when you are the only person inside, you start remembering every face that walks through the door, every regular customer, every delivery driver, every person who comes in during those quiet hours. Because at 2 or 3 in the morning, someone unfamiliar stands out immediately. That is what happened during one overnight shift in 2025. The worker had been doing graveyard shifts at the pizza center for a long time. He knew the routine. He knew the usual late-night customers. He knew the slow hours when the store would become completely silent. Then, one night, just before 2 a.m., a man walked inside. At first, nothing seemed strange. The man looked around the store quietly. Not like someone looking at a menu, more like someone looking at memories. He walked toward the counter and said something that immediately caught the worker's attention. "I used to work here." The worker thought maybe he was a former employee visiting, so he asked him when he worked there. The man looked around the restaurant and replied, "A long time ago. Same night shift." Something about the answer felt strange. The man started talking about the old layout of the store, where the kitchen used to be, where employees stored supplies, where workers would stand during the late hours. Things that were not visible anymore. Things only someone who had actually worked there would know. The worker became curious. He asked the man about his time at the store. But instead of talking about old memories, the man started talking about the current building. That was when the conversation became uncomfortable. He mentioned the security cameras. He knew one camera near the back hallway did not cover the entire area. He knew the loading entrance was difficult to see from the front counter. He knew small details about the building that a normal customer would never notice. Then he said something that made the worker uncomfortable. He mentioned the worker's routine. He knew when the employee usually stepped outside. He knew when the store became quiet. He even knew the route the worker took when leaving after the shift. The worker asked him how he knew all of that. The man simply looked around the store and said, "Some things stay the same." That answer bothered him. The man was not acting like someone guessing. He sounded like someone who had been paying attention. After the customer left, the worker immediately called his former manager. He wanted to know if there had been an old employee who matched the description. At first, the manager did not seem concerned until he heard the name. The worker noticed the change in his voice. The manager became quiet. Then he asked, "Are you sure that was the name he gave you?" The worker confirmed it. And that was when the manager brought up something from the past, a disappearance, a case from 1998 connected to that same location. Years earlier, an overnight employee had disappeared after finishing a late shift. There were no clear answers, no explanation. The case remained unsolved. The former manager explained that the name the stranger gave was connected to that old incident, a name that had not been mentioned in years. The worker immediately became uneasy. He contacted authorities, but by the time anyone arrived, the man was gone. No trace, no explanation, just the memory of someone walking into the store in the middle of the night, knowing details he should not have known, knowing the building, knowing the schedule, knowing the worker. After that night, the employee never felt the same about working alone. Because the hardest part about a graveyard shift is not the silence. It is the feeling that someone else might understand the place better than you do. And sometimes, the most disturbing person you meet at 3 a.m. is not a stranger who does not belong there. It is someone who acts like they never left.